Hello, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are talking surprise albums, and these surprise albums actually come about in a lot of different ways. Sometimes the artists and the teams and their labels are well aware of the surprise release and know that the artist has it planned. Other times the artist has been working on the surprise project and they let their label or their teams know just before it's due to be released. And in other cases, sometimes the artist just completely leaked the project themselves and it's a surprise to everybody. Of course, you can't talk surprise album releases without mentioning Beyonce's self-titled album, which dropped in 2013 because it changed the whole music game, but I won't go too deep into it in this video because, spoiler alert, I will be doing it in December for an Eras Analyzed video because that will be the 10-year anniversary. And also, I'm not talking about that YouTube album that they just put on everybody's devices without consent, out of nothing but spite, but let's go ahead and get into the video. Artists drop surprise albums for several reasons. Some do it simply to shake up the industry, and others do it to prevent their hard work from being leaked, and others do it because of conflicts with their label. Typically, this is a tactic that only works for artists who have a big enough following for their surprise album to make any noise. And surprise album doesn't mean it gets dropped immediately, but just very soon after the announcement and that the project was mostly unexpected. Radiohead is often credited as the artist who put out the first surprise album. They announced their 2007 album In Rainbows on their blog just 10 days before its release. The announcement included a pre-order link where fans could prepay for the album. Radiohead was one of the first groups to use a pay-what-you-want model, allowing fans to set their own price for the album. Fans were sent In Rainbows in the early hours of October 10th. It was a moment of unity for Radiohead fans who interacted with one another and posted their thoughts about In Rainbows on online forums. It was the band's first release in 4 years, and their first after leaving their label EMI, which the band had conflict with. Colin Greenwood, Radiohead's bassist, said they did the surprise drop as a way to utilize the internet's growing power as a music sharing tool. In addition, the band was tired of the traditional way of releasing and promoting albums, which they didn't have to adhere to this time around since they weren't on a label. Making In Rainbows a surprise album was a way to circumvent leaks, which had not only become commonplace, but happened to Radiohead on their previous album. In Rainbows being not only a surprise, but also having no set price were revolutionary in terms of releasing music. The only negative side to this was that to some, the way in which Radiohead released In Rainbows overshadowed the album's musical content. In the 2010s, surprise albums became even more popular. This is likely due to the rise in music streaming, making it easier to drop these projects and easier for fans to consume them. Instead of going to the record store to buy them, they could just stream directly from their devices. On his 66th birthday, David Bowie released a new single called Where Are We Now, accompanied by a music video on YouTube. The release was followed by an announcement on Bowie's website that fans could pre-order his album titled The Next Day. The Next Day was Bowie's first album in 10 years, and many had been convinced he'd retired from music. Bowie recorded the album between 2011 and 2012 and made everyone involved sign NDAs so the project could remain secret. Even the president of Bowie's label didn't know about the album until a month before its release in March of 2013. The Next Day debuted at number 1 in the UK and at number 2 in the Hot 100. All the way back in 2000, Bowie recorded another album called Toy. The goal was to record and release the album as soon as possible, skipping the promotions typical of an album rollout. Toy would include re-recordings of some of Bowie's older songs as well as some new ones. The album was intended to be released in March of 2001. However, due to financial struggles with Bowie's label, it was shelved. Toy was eventually released in November of 2021, over 5 years after Bowie's passing, and is thought to be one of the earliest precursors to the surprise album concept. In June of 2013, Jay-Z announced his 12th album, Magna Carta Holy Grail. He announced the surprise album in a Samsung ad during the NBA Finals. The partnership with Samsung allowed the first 1 million Galaxy users to access Magna Carta 3 days early via an exclusive app. To do this, Samsung bought over 1 million copies of the album to account for the free downloads. So technically the album was only free for fans, Samsung just bought it for them. According to Jay, the album in part represented rewriting the rules about music and navigating being an artist in the internet age. Magna Carta Holy Grail was officially released on July 4, 2013, just 3 weeks after it was announced. Jay-Z is no stranger to a surprise release. Back in 2011, he and Kanye West released their joint project, Watch the Throne, a week early to avoid it being leaked. After a listening party, a blogger had uploaded some of the clips of the songs to the internet, but they were removed. Because of this, Watch the Throne is considered to be one of the first big albums of that time to avoid being leaked as far as the entire album goes. In 2020, Kanye dropped another surprise album called Emmanuel on Christmas. He and Jay-Z reunited musically when Jay appeared on Donda, another one of Kanye's surprise albums released in 2021. Months after Magna Carta Holy Grail, Beyoncé released her self-titled album. Unlike several of her predecessors, she didn't announce the album close to its release date or give fans the chance to pre-order it. Instead, she released the album entirely unannounced in December of 2013. Different from her last album, 4, Beyoncé was able to avoid leaks. Only the top iTunes execs knew about the digital release, and Beyoncé changed the album's title several times. She finalized the release with her label, Columbia, just the week before the album's release. The album was announced to the rest of the Columbia employees the day before it came out. Beyoncé's surprise album was so impactful it not only popularized the concept, but shifted the day artists released music from Tuesdays to Fridays. In 2014, Azealia Banks released Broke with Expensive Taste, her first and only studio album to date. She'd been working on the album since 2011, but conflicts with Interscope allegedly delayed its release, which was slated for 2012. Fans waited so long for Azalea's album, many feared it would never come. In November, Azealia dropped Broke with Expensive Taste under her new label Prospect Park without any promotion. She did, however, tweet the Tuesday prior that fans could expect a magic trick. Time magazine said Azalea's album drop harkened back to Beyoncé's surprise album the year prior. Rolling Stone called Broke with Expensive Taste one of the year's boldest releases. It made the list of best albums of 2014 in publications including Pitchfork, Complex, and the New York Times. Kendrick Lamar released his first surprise project, untitled Unmastered, in March of 2016. Because of the varying elements and runtime in the tracks, Kendrick preferred Untitled Unmastered be called a project rather than an album. The tracks seemed to be listed as their file names, which were likely the dates they were either recorded or completed. Most were from 2014, with one track being from 2013 and 2016 each. Kendrick performed some of the tracks previously, and Untitled Unmastered in some ways seemed a continuation of To Pimp a Butterfly. The CEO of Top Dog Entertainment, Kendrick's label at the time, had stated earlier in the week a surprise project would come, but hadn't said from which artist. In 2022, Kendrick surprised fans again by quote-tweeting a link to a website in response to a post saying he'd retired. The link was showklama.com, and when fans followed it, they found material suggesting Kendrick had a new album in store. Kendrick's return made waves on Twitter as he hadn't put out an album since 2017's Damn. Kendrick's album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, was released in May 2022, less than a month after the tweets. Former Def Jam artist Frank Ocean also released his debut album, Channel Orange, a week early. The early release was planned all along to avoid leaks. Frank explained this, saying, "I wanted to kind of mirror what Jay and Kanye did with Watch the Throne and stagger the digital and physical release, to let the music speak for itself for a second and not be in a situation where the record leaks. Me, my label, and management went through a lot to make sure it went down seamlessly." Channel Orange's early release resulted in Target deciding not to carry the album because iTunes had been given an advantage. Blonde, Frank's sophomore project, was also a surprise release. He owed Def Jam one more album, but wanted out of his contract because he felt he was disrespected at his label. Eventually, Frank put out Endless, a 45-minute project streaming exclusively on Apple Music. This counted as an album and therefore fulfilled Frank's Def Jam contract. The following day, he released Blonde under his own independent label, Boys Don't Cry. This was also the name of a free magazine Frank put out alongside Blonde. In its first week, Blonde sold 276,000 copies, which replaced Drake's Views atop Billboard 200. Lemonade, Beyoncé's album after self-titled, was also released by surprise in 2016. The visual album first aired as an HBO special and was later available on Tidal. Earlier in the week, Beyoncé teased the project with a snippet, leading fans to believe new music was on the way. Lemonade actually inspired an article in Savoir Flair as to whether surprise albums were really actually surprises anymore. By 2016, they'd become relatively common, or at the very least were no longer unheard of. The article was of the opinion that a true surprise album was one like Beyoncé's self-titled that had absolutely no promotion or announcements prior. When Lemonade was released, not only was there a teaser, but there were also murmurs that Beyoncé had been working on music and filming something. The article claimed the only surprise release to come close since Beyoncé's self-titled was Drake's If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. Drake dropped the record in 2015 just by tweeting a link to it. This was on the 6th anniversary of his mixtape So Far Gone, which helped launch his career. That morning, Drake had released a short film called Jungle, which was the name of one of the tracks included on the album. Drake posted an accompanying note with dedications as well as special thanks. There had been rumors about the project, which was originally thought to be a mixtape. Even after its release, there was debate as to whether If You're Reading This should count as a mixtape or an album. Regardless, the project was considered one of Drake's strongest at the time. Its acclaim and popularity was a testament to how far his career had come since So Far Gone. Now pros of the surprise album, Beyoncé and Jay-Z released their joint album Everything Is Love in 2018. This was their first full-length project together. The Carters announced the album on stage during their On the Run 2 tour. At the London show, the couple premiered the video for their song Ape Shit. At the end, the words "album out now" appeared on the screens. Everything Is Love was instantly available to stream on Tidal. A fan claimed Beyoncé had hinted at the album during her Coachella performance by signing a 6 and 3 with her hands. Everything Is Love was released 63 days later. It's not clear if this was intentional or just a fun coincidence, but Beyoncé has been known to drop Easter eggs to her fans. In November of the previous year, Jay-Z had hinted he and Beyoncé were working on a project together. He'd said, "We were using our art almost like a therapy session, and we just started making music together." 444, which is thought of as Jay's response to Lemonade, was announced 2 weeks before its release. The album was teased with posters with the numbers 444 and July 30th, 2017 on them. In mid-June, a teaser video appeared on Tidal. 444 was a partnership between Sprint and Tidal, and the album was exclusive to users of either. The partnership came as a result of Sprint buying 33% stake in Tidal. Following in her big sister's footsteps, Solange's fourth album, When I Get Home, was released as a surprise in 2019. In February, Solange shared her profile on Black Planet, a social media site geared towards Black people. Based on the photos and videos posted, fans realized an album was coming. The previous year, Solange had said that her follow-up to A Seat at the Table would come at a mysterious and unexpected moment. The day after sharing her Black Planet page, Solange released a teaser for the album, and the tracklist came the day after that. When I Get Home was released a few days later on March 1st. Solange recorded the album mainly in Houston and New Orleans, with parts also being recorded in Jamaica and California. Solange said about the album's contents, "There's a lot of jazz at the core, but with electronic and hip-hop drum and bass because I wanted to bang and make your trunk rattle." The album was inspired by Solange's family and friends who felt like home to her. When I Get Home was a continuation of some of the themes in A Seat at the Table, such as celebrating family, oneself, and Black womanhood. 2020 was a double feature of surprise albums for Taylor Swift. That July, Taylor released Folklore. She announced the album the morning of its midnight release, posting the cover, an open letter, and the track list in social media. Like the music on Folklore, the visuals were more subdued and muted compared to Taylor's earlier releases, especially after her foray into pop. Taylor worked on the album during quarantine, saying the pandemic taught her that life was short, and if you love your art, you should just put it out. Minutes later, she tweeted that at midnight she'd also share the Cardigan music video, which she'd written and directed. Folklore was critically acclaimed, with many commending Taylor's introspective lyricism and deviation from top 40s pop. Instead, the contents of Folklore were more reminiscent of some of Taylor's more emotional B-sides. In their review, Vox said Folklore was an album full of Taylor Swift in all too well mode. Just months later, Taylor released Evermore, Folklore's sister album. By that time, Folklore had already been nominated for 6 Grammys, later winning Album of the Year. Evermore came in December of 2020, as Taylor said she'd been inspired to keep writing after Folklore. She also said it was her first time releasing another album as a continuation of a previous era. This time, Taylor directed the video for Willow, which was released at the same time as Evermore. Evermore 2 was a critically acclaimed project and was also nominated for Album of the Year, though it didn't win. Last October, Taylor Swift released her most recent album, Midnights. Though the album was announced months prior at the VMAs, Taylor still had another surprise up her sleeve. The day of Midnight's release, Taylor announced she would also release the 3 a.m. edition 3 hours after the album's premiere. It would be 3 a.m. on the East Coast, yet just midnight on the West Coast. The 3 a.m. edition included 7 additional tracks. Taylor explained in her announcement that she wanted to share more of her creative journey with her fans. In a shared calendar for the Midnight's rollout, Taylor teased a very special chaotic surprise was coming at 3 a.m., followed by the anti-hero video at 8 a.m. Midnight's was noticeably different from Folklore and Evermore, and more in line with the synth pop Taylor had explored on albums like 1989 or Lover. Right in the middle of Taylor's surprise releases, Ariana Grande also surprised fans with an album announcement. In mid-October, she simply tweeted, "I can't wait to give you my album this month." Though she'd been relatively quiet during the pandemic, Ariana had teased a few times she'd been in the studio. The week before announcing the album, she tweeted about turning in her mixes and reminding fans to vote. There was hope the long-awaited Ariana and Mariah Carey collab would be on the album, still called AG6 at the time. Days before Ariana announced AG6, Mariah had tweeted a picture of 3 chairs bearing her initials, Ariana's, and Jennifer Hudson's. The collaboration ended up being a remix of Oh Santa, one of Mariah's holiday songs. 9 days after tweeting about the album, Ariana released the first single, Positions. Her website showed 2 timers, one for October 23rd, the day Positions the single was released, and the other for October 30th, which was the day Positions the album was finally released. You know, I at first didn't realize that surprise albums are as common of a thing as they are, but it kind of makes sense. You know, if you have the music ready to go and you already know that you have the fan base that's going to listen to it whenever you put it out, like, why wait for it? Ariana Grande said something pretty similar to that, where she was kind of stating that she just wants to put music out whenever she's done with it and wants her fans to hear it, and kind of felt that there was a double standard for a lot of pop artists and female artists who are expected to sort of wait and announce their release dates ahead of time, whereas a lot of male artists, particularly rappers and hip-hop artists, kind of just drop music as they complete it. Doing this video made me realize that I do need to do a video on leaked albums, because anytime I'm talking about an album, I'm like, oh yeah, this single got leaked, that got leaked, the whole album got leaked, because it's just so common. And while researching this video, I was reminded that Anti accidentally got uploaded onto Tidal and leaked that way before people even knew for sure that an album was coming. You know, I actually wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't an accident, because nothing's an accident with Jay-Z, I feel like, so who knows. Also, make sure you let me know down in the comments what to you counts as a surprise album. Do you think it has to be something like Beyoncé's self-titled, or if you're reading this, it's too late, where there's absolutely no announcement, absolutely no promotion, and it's just put out? Because part of me thinks that that's only what counts as a surprise, but then I look at things like with what Radiohead did with In Rainbows, where yeah, they announced the album a week early, but still no one thought it was going to happen or expected it, so it's like I would still count that as a surprise as well. But I don't know. But make sure to let me know what you think. As always, thank you all so very much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick around for more. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter so that you can keep up with me there. If you'd like to become a channel member, the link is in the video description. I love you dolls very much, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.